WCAG 2.1 AA has become the focal point when it comes to compliance with laws and regulations that mandate digital accessibility. This time, we have an update, a new rule from the Department of Health and Human Services that updates regulation for Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Now, Section 504 applies to recipients of federal funding, and the point here is to make sure that no one is denied access to any activity, service, or program that receives federal funding. And in this update, we have the Department of Health and Human Services requiring an array of different things through updates. So they clarified existing regulation, they strengthened existing regulation, and one of those updates is that they clarify that WCAG 2.1 AA is now the technical standard required for compliance. So on the screen with me is a write-up from accessible.org. I will include this in a link in the description. And this write-up tells you basically what you need to know about this new rule as it pertains to digital accessibility. Again, this rule goes well beyond digital accessibility, but of course, digital accessibility is one important part of it. So, just to name a few things covered in this post, we have an essential section where you get the compliance deadline dates, and the compliance deadlines are very much are actually they mirror the ADA Title II requirements in that smaller entities have 3 years, and then larger sized entities have 2 years, and it's based on employees. So if you have 15 or more employees, you are considered a larger entity. You have 2 years for compliance, and then 3 years for entities with less than 15 employees. And then here we have a section, what is in the new HHS rule, and there are just several bullet points where the Department of Health and Human Services made updates and clarified different things. So one of the bullet points is web and mobile accessibility. And on this bullet point, I have simply that they define what accessibility means for websites and mobile apps, and it requires WCAG 2.1 AA conformance. Then there is a section with who is covered by the new rule, and then we get into the requirements. And so for the requirements, I'm going to actually look to the official rule posted in the Federal Register, and this rule was posted on May 9th, 2024. And so we see that as we scroll down, we see a subpart 1, web, mobile, and kiosk accessibility. And I'm going to include a link to the URL for this short paragraph so that you can start reading at this section. But the general requirements for web and mobile accessibility are that websites, web content, which includes websites, everything. When you think of when you think of web content, just think of everything that can be accessed by a web browser. So all web content, mobile apps, including web content actually includes documents as well. Everything, all of that needs to be WCAG 2.1 AA conformant. I've already listed off the deadlines, which are next. And then we have the exceptions, and then we have 5 content exceptions. So archived web content, pre-existing electronic documents, content posted by a third party, individual password protected documents, and then pre-existing social media posts. So these exceptions, again, these requirements and the exceptions all mirror what is in Title II. So if you look at through my Title II videos, you will know, okay, what is required under this new rule. It's the same as Title II. Then there's also the possibility of conforming alternate versions. This is extremely limited, and I'd recommend not going this route at all. It will just lead to more questions. So unless this is absolutely necessary, which is really the only way that you can use a conforming alternate version and still be compliant with the law, then I recommend you avoid alternative versions altogether or alternate versions altogether. And then we do see here that they include this one carve out for nonconformance with WCAG 2.1 AA if it has a minimal impact on access. And that's really the entire portion or the entire part here of subpart one, mobile, and kiosk accessibility. And kiosk is just a really short section. I didn't cover this, but I'll include a link to where I read through on this document. But just know that when it comes to compliance for digital accessibility under this new rule that has been issued by the Department of Health and Human Services, it's going to mirror the requirements of Title II. So I will probably cover some more on specific to the new HHS rule, but just know that it mirrors Title II. So I'm going to include many resources to help you work through compliance. This is a project. The reason they provided 2 and 3 years is because this is digital accessibility is quite involved when we're making our websites and our web content and our mobile apps. WCAG 2.1 AA conformant. It does take time, but you do have the 2 and 3 years, but that is not a lot of time when we're talking about full conformance. So I recommend getting started as soon as possible, and I will go ahead and publish resources in the description.